Okay, welcome. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. This is our first skill shop of the year. And today we're going to be talking about sponsorship and budgeting strategies for events. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. This session will be recorded. All attendees will be muted. We will have time for question and answer at the end of the skill shop. So throughout, please feel free to drop your questions into the chat and we will address those. Also, at the end of the presentation, we will have some resources for you to take home with you. And then we will have a survey that we'd love for you to complete so that we know what we should do for the next skill shop. So before we jump in, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Demishi Pai, and I am the Community Impact Coordinator for Tacoma Venues and Events. I lead the Community Engagement Program, and I support community engagement at the City of Tacoma's produced events, such as the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration and City of Destiny Awards. Who is TVE? Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but Tacoma Venues and Events, also known as TVE. So if you hear me refer to us as that, that's what that stands for. We manage the Tacoma event venues, such as Tacoma Dome, Cheney Stadium, the Convention Center, Pantages, and Rialto Theaters, along with Theater on the Square. We also manage the special event and film permits, along with special event grant funding. And joining us here today is my colleague, Ashley Young, and she's going to dive into that special event program. Ashley.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley Young. I am the Special Event Coordinator for TVE. I oversee all of the event permitting that happens in the public right-of-way. So festivals, parades, street fairs, neighborhood block parties, that comes through my office. I also oversee any film permits that come through my office. And then a really special role for me is I'm the liaison for our City Events and Recognitions Committee. I oversee the committee that is appointed on behalf of council to produce the MLK event and the City of Destiny event. In addition, they provide funding to our community events through our special event funding program. So thanks for having me here today. I will be your ops, I guess is the best way to do it. So I'll be checking Q&A. If there's anything that pops in the chat, I will be looking through all that stuff and helping Demishi facilitate this presentation.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, we're going to dive into a poll. What is your event budget style? I would love to say mine is A, but it's not. I usually relate more to C and D. So go ahead and put your answers in. Now let's see what we've got going on.
All right, you've got a lot of folks who love a detailed spreadsheet. I gotta say, you're my
I know. I feel like there's a lot of event organizers on this call. That spreadsheet makes us feel cozy.
But I also got to give a shout out to I plan as I go, because sometimes we don't really know what we have to work with. And that's a really big goal of this presentation today, because we all have to be folks that just plan on our feet. Sometimes you don't know what's going to be around the corner and you got to work with what you got.
I must say, Ashley, I'm really surprised that no one has said, what's a budget? Are we being truthful out there? I see you.
I'm kind of proud. Kind of proud.
I'm going to vote for that one. Okay.
Well, let's end this poll and I'll share out the results for everybody. So yeah, by 63%, love us a good spreadsheet. Well, good, you've come to the right place, because we've got about 4 different spreadsheets we're going to be sharing with you folks today. And this is how we keep track of everything. And this is like the important part of like managing these events. So, but plan as you go, we got to have that flex and wing it, hope it for the best. You know, sometimes You just have a good idea, you want to run with it. So, all right, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Ashley. All right, now I would love to introduce our panelists. Joining us today, we have Adam Gisation, Director of Business Development from Tacoma Venues and Events. We have Michael Otter Alvarado, Associate Director of Development from Trails Ride Academy, and Galen Anist, VP Marketing Communications Manager from Commencement Bank. Thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited to hear from all of you. So, what are we going to be talking about today? We are going to be talking about the benefit of securing sponsorships. So we are going to address that from a commercial, nonprofit, and sponsor perspectives. Identifying your assets. What do you bring into the table? Why should a sponsor sponsor your event? We're going to talk about the sales process for securing partnerships, and we're going to dive into 6 steps of that. We have the sponsor insight, and we'll hear from Galen, and the budget resource. This is when Ashley Young will jump back in and go over that spreadsheet that makes us feel so cozy, and she'll go over that with you. And then, of course, at the end, like I mentioned, we will have Q&A, and throughout the skill shop, please put your questions in the chat. Now,
Quick,
the
real
benefit of
quickly, the chat has not been enabled. So if you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A. I will be responding to them in real time and then bringing back those questions afterwards.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ashley. The benefit of securing sponsorships. Sponsorships often start with a brand looking for a meaningful way to connect. It's not just about logos and banners, it's about building real relationships. So, my question for Adam, from a commercial standpoint, what is the real value in obtaining sponsorships?
All right, thanks, Tamishi. So my name is Adam. As Tamishi said, I handle the corporate sponsorships for TVE. And while my main focus is venue sponsorship, I also procure sponsorships for some of our community events. So I'll touch on a few ways that sponsorships can enhance and provide more value for your guests. The first is boosting awareness. Sponsors can help promote your event, extend your market search, and boost attendance. Once you do have a sponsor on board, they can help you to promote on their social channels, websites or blogs, print material, any pre-event content or announcements. They can offer discounts or tickets if it's a ticketed event. And next is leveraging your sponsor's brand. So this is at the Dome, like we brought in, just to give you an example, we brought in a local restaurant as a new sponsor and concession stand, and just with their name recognition, we were able to take one of our worst performing concession stands and turn it into one of our better stands. So that's a way to leverage your sponsor's brand. Cross promotional opportunities. You can work with a sponsor to do enter win contests at their locations, social media for VIP tickets, or maybe a hospitality upgrade. Next is guest service amenities. Sponsors can add value to your events. Maybe your event needs some swag or giveaways or unique experiences or services. Just to give some examples from the Tacoma Dome, we work with Commencement Bank, and they sponsor our guest service kiosk. And there we provide like branded earplugs for guests for some of our events that may be a little more loud. With our Pepsi partner, we work with them to co-brand some clear bags we provide to guests. We also have a free self-charging locker that's powered by Pepsi that's on our concourse, and guests can charge their phones for free at any of our events. Some other events, we have a food truck sponsor that will provide free food for a set amount of time for some of our like GA events where guests are outside for a long time, and then allow the sponsor to stay and sell afterwards, and gives them some benefit as well. And last but not least, financially, sponsors can help your revenue stream or provide in-kind services to cover some of your costs. So if they can't provide cash, maybe they can provide things, in kind, such as like the event venue or food, prizes, tents, photo booth, or other activities that may add value. Equipment and services are also another opportunity. Maybe signage needs. A media partner can also spread the word and help you from spending money to advertise your event. So maybe instead of, you can give them presence at your event in exchange for advertising. So just to kind of sum it up, in kind is another way to provide value or help your revenue stream for your event.
Thank you so much, Adam. I had no idea that Commencement Bank sponsored earplugs. I just found that out when I saw this picture and putting together a presentation. I thought that was a very creative and innovative way to sponsor. Very nice. Thank you.
Okay.
And so now for nonprofits, sponsorship can be a powerful tool for expanding programs, reaching new audiences, and deepening community impact. Michael, now I know you just finished the auction for Charles Wright, so congratulations on that. I would like to know, what was your sponsorship goal and what did you actually achieve?
Yeah, thank you, Namishi, and good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here and share some useful tips and tricks today. I work in the development office, and so wearing many hats, if many are out there as well wearing those many hats, sponsorship is just one small piece of it, but a very important piece. So for our auction, going into it, sponsorship, the biggest goal really is to just cover the cost of putting on the event. When I'm going out in the community asking for sponsorship, we are really seeking support so that every dollar raised during the night of the auction really just goes straight to the school and does not, go to offset those costs. We really want to utilize our sponsorship dollars to kind of offset that. So going in, and in the past, it has never fully covered the cost of the event. So I'm proud to say that this year, this is just my second year at the academy, we were able to secure enough sponsorship and more than enough sponsorship to cover all of the event costs. So, it's a lot of different pieces that go into it. But if you are having kind of a good strategy and kind of have that spreadsheet to go along and finding those key partnerships with, that's kind of a good way to start getting into the community. So to really, create those loyal audiences and create visibility for your partners, for strategy that we use is the vendors that we have at the school. That's kind of a great way to partner with the organizations that we're utilizing services from, that we can also push forward out into the community, that those are our partners that we use. And so there are some more on the next slide. Really trying to find innovative and creative opportunities, like in the last slide with the earbuds. That's a very creative way to showcase that sponsorship opportunities. But really, you kind of can find unique ways that work with your organization, and knowing who is in your community and who is seeing these sponsorship opportunities, that you can really tailor it to be with aligning with your organization. Let's see, and then also tax deductibility. Sponsors can definitely receive tax benefits to when they are sponsoring your event as well. So that's kind of also the financial benefit of that side.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michael. We've heard about the benefits of securing sponsorships from both the commercial and nonprofit sides. Now we're going to shift our focus to the sponsor's point of view. And to help us understand that perspective, I'm excited to welcome Galen from Commencement Bank. Hi, Galen.
Hi, Tamishi. Thank you. I'm excited to be here and offer the other side of the perspective. What inspires us to partner on community events? Well, we are a community bank, so it's part of our name. And beyond that, we always strive to do the right thing for our employees, our clients, and our community. So being involved in events and sponsorships is part of who we are. Beyond that, though, for you guys, I think what would be valuable to hear is we really want to hear where our dollars are going. So the more specific that you can be in the impact that our sponsorship is going to have, especially for this is from the nonprofit side, the more likely we are to have a connection to that event or sponsorship. From the commercial side, for instance, like the Tacoma Dome, I'll refer back to the earplugs, those little things that are selling for us even when we're not there and not present. So making our brand just a part of that sponsorship as much as possible really goes that extra mile and makes us more likely to want to engage in that. What do we look for in a partnership beyond brand visibility? Brand visibility is the most important. That is why we do a lot of this. But alignment with demographic, location, things that really kind of make it a better fit for what we're trying to accomplish is a huge incentive for us. So, if you are hosting a business seminar or something where that's our clientele, and you really tailor our sponsorship to that demographic and go that extra mile, again, that's going to make a huge difference to us. The value of audience engagement. Well, I think audience engagement is the main goal, and so the value would obviously be showing that ROI. I will use another example, for instance, our sponsorship with the Tacoma Dome, and in addition to the earplugs and the banners and all of that, we get tickets to these events. And we turn around and we use these tickets to go out and speak to our prospects and use them as warm leads so that we can get in front of those people and use those sponsorship elements as sales tools. And that is extremely valuable to us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Galen. We have understanding your audience, who's coming, and we'll have Adam talk a little more about that.
All right, thanks, Mishi.
Yeah.
So before you can really start pitching sponsorships, it's good to know your audience, and it's helpful to approach sponsors whose audience matches in both demographics and interests. So once you know who's coming to your event, you can begin to tailor your message and opportunities and really maximize the value for the sponsor. Gathering data, or you can gather data about your audience through surveys, database, Google Analytics, past buyers or attendees, and use this data to showcase the benefits to a prospective sponsor and show how your event or venue aligns with their target demographic. So for instance, if a prospect is looking only for Tacoma residents, you can pull data to show how sponsorship can help them target this audience with your assets. Or if the audience values sustainability, you may want to do a little digging and focus on businesses that share these same values.
Identifying your assets. I know you had an example for this one, Adam.
Yes. So an important part of pitching sponsorships is knowing what you have to offer. So this is an example of a rate card that I use for the Dome. And as you can see, this rate card lists and tracks all available assets, including signage, website, digital opportunities, event on-site exposure, hospitality, presenting areas, etc. So I keep this. This isn't the entire rate card, but just to give an idea, I keep this updated as items are sold, and include things like the type or material of signage, size of the graphic, number of each asset that available to sell, and then the value of each piece of inventory. This can just be a starting point for your negotiations. And location, I also provide production costs as well. So this is just kind of a snippet. This will also be, I think, available as an attachment. But yeah, this is a kind of a standard rate card that you would see, or you may want to create. So.
And then from what I currently am using, this is a little snippet of kind of that same rate card or different levels of sponsorship that we offer. So again, finding your strengths, what are your assets that you can offer? What are you already doing? Are there any magazines or print pieces that you can easily add advertisements into? Can you create social media posts for your sponsors and create a tiered benefit list based off of the level of the sponsorship? So I know it's a little, too small print to see, but, each level kind of builds off from the next, and you can really customize your rate sheet however you'd like. But I think creating like a one-pager that's easy to read and easy to follow is really helpful when presenting the ask. At least this will get, that first step into the door whenever you are starting a conversation about sponsorship. And bonus points on making it customizable to fit the, whoever you're asking their needs. You'll see we offer some tickets to actually attend the event that they are sponsoring. However, the sponsor can opt out to not receive those tickets for increased tax deductibility kind of opportunities there. So really finding different ways to meet the needs of the person that you're entering this partnership with, and figuring out what best needs they can fill for you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Michael. So once you know what you bring to the table, the next step is turning those assets into meaningful partnership. This is where the sales process comes in. Next slide. So we're going to be discussing the 6 steps of partnership: prospecting, qualifying, presenting a proposal, negotiating contracts, maintaining relationships, recap, and renew. The first step is prospecting, identifying and reaching out to potential customers who may be interested. Now, most of us on this call are very familiar with LinkedIn, Eventbrite, social media. One of the ones that I wanted to talk about was leverage your network. And what this really means is you are already talking to some of the sponsors that you're already working with. So you're going to want to get out of your comfort zone and ask them, your sponsors, who else could I be talking to? Within that conversation, they would be able to guide you perhaps to someone else that can help sponsor your event. And we'll have Adam start with qualifying.
All right. So after you have some leads and possibly like secure a meeting, asking the right questions during your conversations can help you learn if a prospect is a good fit. So before a meeting or call, I usually list out some questions that may help for me to really find out more about their interests. So the ultimate goal is to understand their needs. So what does the sponsor hope to achieve? Do they only care about brand recognition, or do they want to generate leads at your event? So here are some questions, just some sample questions that you may want to ask just to find their hot buttons. Number 1, budget related questions. So questions could be, what budget have you allocated for solving this problem? Or how do you typically budget for sponsorships? When do you start your budgeting process? So those are a couple need related questions. Maybe ask about what challenges you're currently facing, or what do you hope to achieve with your event sponsorship? And timing questions. When do you hope to implement this decision? Decision making. Who else is involved in the decision-making process, or what does your decision-making process look like? And then finally, fit-related questions. What other solutions are you considering at this time, or what other events have you sponsored in the past, and how have they gone? So those are just some questions. You know, it'll change based on who you're talking with, but just it's good to have some preparation going into a call or a meeting, so you really have some questions laid out to find what their hot buttons are. So once you find their hot buttons, you can align your objectives with their goals and then proceed to the proposal. So presenting a proposal, it would be the next step in the sales process. And this is a checklist for items you would want to include in a proposal. So you want your proposal to stand out. Remember that companies are probably reviewing numerous proposals every day or every week. So you can paint the picture by including these in your proposal. So section 1, event details, like describe the purpose, maybe some event history, provide any information, dates, location, target audience. Section 2 would be the benefits for a sponsor. Outline all benefits that they would receive, audience reach, available opportunities, show how it aligns with their demographic. Be honest and don't overcompromise or overpromise, sorry. Section 3 is the packages. So create specialized packages for your prospects. For instance, if they want to sell product or engage with customers, don't focus on branding, focus on their goals. And then budget and timeline. Be clear about costs, additional fees, for example, who covers cost of signage or any other fees that they may have to cover as a sponsor. And last, call to action. This is usually the last page of my proposal, and I just put my contact information if there's a proposal deadline and maybe next steps. And just a reminder, try to tailor your packages. This really shows that you spent the time and listened to their needs. Okay, and then the next step is negotiating. So this is the 4th step in the sales process, and I'll just briefly go through a couple tips to maybe help. Maybe you've all done some negotiations in the past, but these I find helpful. So number 1, don't skip the prep. Never go into negotiations without knowing their goals, alternatives, and possible objections that may come up. Negotiate based on their needs, but stay firm on things that you want to protect on your event or venue. Don't always accept the first offer. If the other side makes the first move, don't accept immediately. Consider a counter proposal to ensure you're getting the best deal. Anticipate concessions. Would just be strategic about what you're willing to concede while ensuring that you still create value for yourself. Next is make it a win-win. Focus on building a mutually beneficial relationship. Remember, it's easier to renew when your sponsor is happy. Know when to walk away. If an agreement doesn't align with your goals, be prepared to step back and reassess your options. Be flexible and open to compromise. It's all about finding common ground. So remember that stinginess benefits nobody. And then finally, close with clarity. Summarize all the key terms and confirm mutual understanding. And this is just a contracting checklist, a letter of agreement checklist with some sections you may want to include when you go to the contract process. The first is purpose. This is just the event name, date, venue. Term details would be like start and finish. If there's an option to renew for another year or another event, any extensions. Sponsor benefits, just list out what they receive, be very specific. Maybe is their category exclusivity. Payment terms and fees, just be specific here with dates, things of that nature with the payment terms. Termination is what happens if one side doesn't pay? What is the cure time? Even if you think this won't be something that happens, it definitely does. So just make sure you have that very specific for when you do have to, hopefully never, but it'll probably happen. Indemnification, this is compensation for harm or loss. And then force majeure, this basically just frees both parties from liability when an event happens beyond control parties, war, or epidemic, act of God. We had to, obviously, over the pandemic, we had to go and change our force majeure language on all of our contracts. So governing law, if it happens to go to court, where does it preside? And then last, signatures. There may be other sections that your organization requires you to include, but these are the basics. Like for the city, I have an approved template that I use, but if a client asks to edit certain language, I have to go and have our legal team review. So just keep that in mind on your contract.
Thank you so much, Adam. Michael, I would love to hear about some of those tips and tricks when it comes to maintaining sponsor relationships. I would love to get some insight on that and some real examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So our sponsors at the school range from all kinds of different backgrounds, banks, parents that have different types of businesses as well. So, it really comes down to like, who am I seeing on a day-to-day basis and how can I keep them engaged and connected and making sure that I'm thanking them year round, just really maintaining those relationships. Communication is everything. We always like communicating, perhaps, the impact of what the event did, creating a little report of how the event went and what the impact was, and really honing down, it all comes down to your mission as an organization. What do you stand for and what are they supporting when they are sponsoring you, and how can you really capitalize on that? So as a pre-K through 12 private school, we can offer those opportunities to engage with, how student life is going and how, their support is really engaging our students and community. Always having little special surprises of, thank you cards or just little shout outs through social media of again, that stewardship piece, being thankful, always seeking feedback as well. And, it's a great way to maybe engage for next year, how their sponsorship experience went this year, and if there's any needs or anything that they might potentially want to see for next year, or something that could maybe be tailored more towards them, that we could look into maybe. There's one example, we have a name the loop experience. So there's a big loop that drives around campus, and a family has that. They have a local orthodontist practice, and so they have their sign that says their orthodontist's name on the sign, and that's been driving a lot of traffic from families, because how many of our kids need some braces or some work done. I don't know. I was definitely one of those kids. So just kind of word of mouth and the power of supporting our own community definitely plays a big part of it. We want to support each other as one tight-knit community. So all those kinds of opportunities, inviting sponsors to other events that they're not directly sponsoring could be a great way to keep them engaged year round. And maybe might be an opportunity for them to sponsor that additional event again next year. So all kinds of different opportunities. And here's just a little list for you to see.
Thank you so much, Michael. Oh, yes, Adam. Let's talk about recap.
Sorry. So the recap and renewal are the two, the final steps and they kind of go hand in hand. So here's a sample recap spreadsheet that I use. Basically, you want to list out all the value that you provided. So my recaps include total attendance, demographics, if you are able to gather those, impressions, event photos, signage photos, sales numbers, or volume if a sponsor is selling and you're able to get that information, any media exposure that they received, ticket value that maybe you provided tickets, social media exposure, bonus tickets or extra value provided, TV or radio spots, and PR that's earned, and press releases. So basically show your partner the value that they receive for their investment. And if they don't see an ROI, that's, they likely won't come back. So you really have to just show that, show the value that you provided.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're on to the renewal. I would love to hear from Adam and Michael. What are some of your renewal tips? And then from Galen, I would like to hear why you renew. Now, remember, Galen is a sponsor. So, Adam, how about you go first? What are some of your renewal tips?
As far as renewing, I think it's good to keep a few in mind. I think start early, start the process well in advance of the contract expiration or your event. So a lot of times if you delay, you can miss their budget. So and this also allows once you start the renewal process, if there's any adjustments that maybe need to be made, and it could take a little more time. So I think also like offering upgrades or exclusive opportunities, maybe offering something that is new or not available to others, maybe a new hospitality area or a new inventory item. So I think that's key. Listen and asking questions. I think just, be upfront, be honest, like what worked well, what didn't. Be open to feedback and how you can improve for the next time. And then I think just showing your appreciation, like thank you letters, small gifts, anything like that really helps over the course of a term or, in between your next ask. So those are a couple tips that I like to keep in mind when it comes to the renewal process.
Thank you, Adam. I know for a nonprofit, renewal can feel like a lot of pressure because nonprofits, they need all the money. So they're crossing fingers and toes, hoping that these people are coming back. So Michael, tell me some of your tips and tricks, and if you have a personal example, we would love to hear that as well.
Yeah. So, like you said, it's really important for us to get those dollars to cover those costs as a nonprofit. And when we're making the ask, again, also showcasing the reach that our community has is really important as well. Like to highlight, if we're sending a magazine out to our whole community that ranges from alumni and parents and all of that, like really showcasing, how far of reach do we have in the community and beyond. So having those conversations, whether that's an initial phone call to set up a meeting, and really talking about how things went and how they felt as a sponsor. Did they feel recognized? Did they feel like, do they feel like they got a little increase in people inquiries to engage with their services, things like that. There's one sponsor this year that was really excited to increase actually because of the certain benefits that we were able to offer for a higher tier. And it's like a local baseball club, but because of their affiliation and their interest in wanting to get, high school age kids to join their baseball programming, that's a really great partnership there to gauge that interest and make them a little bit more visible on campus. We have a big sponsorship banner that stays on year round. So we kind of always highlight who our sponsors of the year are on this big banner that really just showcases our preferred partners and supporters.
Wonderful. And so one of the things that's really important is to understand the difference different partnership between sponsor and donors. And a lot of times we get those confused. We think they are the same, and they are not. So Michael is going to give us some clarification, sponsors versus donors. Tell us a little bit about that, Michael.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in layman's terms, it's a sponsorship is really where both parties receive some benefit, and a donation is really where there's minimal benefit from the one giving the money, besides maybe, some tax deductible opportunities there. But really, if we break it down by motivation, donors really are motivated by philanthropy and supporting the cause, whether that's education or whatever your organization might be affiliated with. Sponsors have business goals and they want to increase their brand recognition. So a lot of times you'll be speaking with marketing professionals within the organization, like Galen here will mention a little bit. So, it is really a advertising line item for the organization that is sponsoring you. So it is kind of a big, kind of a different side of it there. Donors want minimal, if not no public recognition at all. Some decide to give anonymously, whereas sponsors really do want their logos showcased. So again, think about where can you slap those logos on, like throughout the year of your organization, where you're already giving out opportunities. Is your organization giving out calendars, with your events on it? Can you put sponsors on there? Relationships, donors are more personal and more mission driven. We're sponsors. We support you, you promote us. Again, that symbiotic relationship there. And then tax implications as well. Donations are often more tax deductible, while sponsorships may be deductible as a business expense, and maybe less so because there is a benefit attached to it when you add things like ticket sales or advertising slots that typically cost money.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. Now that we've explored the full partnership journey, let's shift to sponsor insight. I would like to take a moment to spotlight a partnership that reflects true community impact between the Tacoma Dome and Commencement Bank. Through efforts like Hams for the Holidays, this collaboration shows how meaningful sponsorships can go beyond branding to make a real difference. Um, Next slide, please. Galen, you're up. How can you share how Hams for the Holidays came to be and how the partnership with the Dome helped bring that vision to life?
Absolutely. I've been waiting to talk about this slide. So we were challenged in 2019 as an organization to find something that would go above and beyond just the typical community involvement that we were doing, volunteer hours and financial donations. And then I entered into this sponsorship with the Tacoma Dome with Adam as my rep, so I'll use him as my point of contact. But and I was able to participate in an event that the Tacoma Dome put on for a turkey giveaway. And I remember going to Adam afterwards, and I was just so moved by, number one, the need in the community for these people to drive through and get these turkeys for Thanksgiving. And then I went to him and I said, how can we, Commencement Bank, do something like this that has such an impact? And so this was not part of our original sponsorship, just so you know. So this is the above and beyond that he's been talking about. But we were able to piggyback on their logistics. They gave us their event space, and we hosted our first ever Hams for the Holidays on December 19th, 2024. And we fed over 2,000 families for the holiday season. I was able to work with Demishi and a lot of Adam's team. They helped us so much, and they did this all just, to be part of it with us. And so this is something that we will continue to do for years to come, but also that really just stood out to us in terms of sponsors of, how these partnerships can turn into something greater than what we ever anticipated. So
Wonderful. I
yeah.
mean, it's such a beautiful partnership, and we definitely appreciate you and Commencement Bank for bringing us into that fold. So,
Uh,
what makes a meaningful sponsorship?
Yeah, so I mean, I think speaking back to Hands for the Holidays, things like that, and obviously that's not, you can't do that with every sponsorship, right? That's kind of a special case scenario. But what's changing in the sponsorship landscape and how should organizers adapt? Um, gosh, things are always changing. I mean, from social media tools to, things that you can offer for your benefit packages. My phone is always ringing. My email's always going off. I get sponsorship opportunities in front of me constantly. So for somebody to stand out, I think what's really important is to remember what doesn't change. And what doesn't change is the way that we connect with people, and the way that people make decisions emotionally. So if you stick to those guidelines of, knowing my brand, knowing how to approach me personally, make it things that kind of tug on our heartstrings. I think that's more of where the focus should be, because if you try to just constantly stay on top of the landscape and the tools, you will get buried under that. So that is my best advice for what's changing in the landscape. Not that you shouldn't use those tools, and I think that they're great, but I think that they're ancillary to really building that relationship with those sponsors. And then from my experience as a sponsor, what advice would I give to event organizers trying to build meaningful sponsorships and partnerships, and how should they approach potential sponsors? I think the advice that I would give is the more customization, the better. I get a lot of those sheets of here's what we offer. You get 3 social media posts and you get a banner and you get this and you get that. But when somebody like Michael sits down with me and says, hey, I noticed you guys are a business bank. We want to tailor these social media posts so that they incorporate what you guys do, and really going above and beyond to show that you took the time to understand what our goals are. That makes all the difference. I have another sponsorship that I do with the Tacoma Symphony, and every time that we sponsor an event, she calls me and she's like, Kaylin, I know what we can do better next year. I know where we're going to put you in this and that. So she doesn't even give me a chance to say, you're not going to do it. She's already got a plan, right? So that makes it incredibly hard for me to say no to her. But, it's things like that, those little touch points. And Adam, if there's extra tickets to something, like I spoke about earlier, he's like, hey, can you use a couple extra tickets to this? It's like, yes, I can. Absolutely. So just going above and beyond to customize and know your sponsor. When you're doing your first approach, though, I would recommend, especially if it's a big sponsor that you're looking to create a long-term relationship with, send the email, make the call, get me familiar, but then drop that packet off in person, because I do look at those. If somebody drops me off something tangible and it's sitting on my desk and my branch gets it to me, I'm curious, right? So I'm going to look at it. And if I see that it's got value, especially for the multitude that I get, that it's customized and looks like something that would actually be able to track, I'd be able to track an ROI, I'm probably going to call you back. And that takes a lot. So those would be my tips and tricks on that for you guys.
I appreciate those tips and tricks. I love that. I think sometimes we get so caught up in making it happen that we kind of forget to reset and think about what we can do for the sponsor, what's going to separate us, make us look different, enhance the sponsor's experience. So thank you. Those are all extremely important and valuable. We're going to go over to Ms. Ashley Young, and she is going to actually go over that budget resource that everybody in the beginning was so excited about. So she has a spreadsheet that she's going to share with us. Ms. Ashley.
Hi guys, me again. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to our panelists. This was such valuable information. A lot of you have asked if there was going to be these resources available. Yes, and I will show you where to get them. But first, we're going to go over the budget resource that we're providing. As TVE continues to have these skill shops, it is incredibly important to us that our participants are walking away with tools that they can use practically as they plan their events. And so we went to our finance director and budget guru and asked if she could help us create a user-friendly budget sheet for our attendees to be able to apply to their own budgeting. So what you'll see here is the Excel spreadsheet. The first page is instructions on how to use the spreadsheet. She wanted just to give a way for you to know how to use it to your best advantage. On the second spreadsheet, what you'll see here is I've created a mock event because if it was blank, I thought it would be a little bit trickier to convey the messaging here. But I'm just going to go through kind of each section really quickly and show you what we have here. So at the very top, we obviously have the name of our event and the date. Our event is Tacktown Art Fest 2026. Get excited because we're going to have art, music, fun activities, and it will be on my birthday, which is the best. So in our fake mock event on my birthday, you will see the first section that is talking about event revenue. Now, what she's done here is created several different revenue line items for you to be able to pick and choose. I always like to get an estimate. These are my goals. These are the goals that I'm trying to hit as far as my revenue is concerned. So I'm trying to get that $5,000 special event funding grant. I'm trying to get $10,000 worth of sponsorships throughout the community. You typically average about $3,000 in donations for this event. Vendor fees, if I have 50 different placements that I can put vendors and each booth is $250, I can estimate that I'll make about $12,500. Merchandise sales, if you have X amount of hats, X amount of socks, X amount of hoodies, and you sell them all, you can estimate that you'll gain about $6,000 in revenue. And then, if you have special areas, additional VIP ticketing opportunities in your event, and there's 150 seats, you can sell them at $100 each and gain about $15,000 in revenue. Now, when you're going to your quote, this is what the section I'm using as I'm getting closer to my event. It's a month away and I know that I have $3,000 in grants and funding so far. I got only $8,500 in sponsorship. This is helping me get a better understanding of what money I'm actually having to spend for this particular event. And then I always like to close it out post-event with putting my actuals in there. Donations can happen on the day of your event. And so don't forget to add it to that column. And perhaps you overperformed. So this is all great data and information for you to be able to bring back to the future when you're planning this event for the second, third, fifth year, and so on. So right here you can see, and always take notes. I'm a forgetful person. I don't know about you, but if I don't write it down, it doesn't exist. So don't forget to use your notes section. It's also a really great way to communicate out to your board members, to your leadership, to your staff, where these items are coming from. So then we have here your expenditures. Again, estimates. These are goals I'm setting for myself way ahead of the game. This is the first column that I am putting in there when I'm planning my event. And I have a general rule of if it's from your last year's event, I'll take my actuals from last year, I'll pop them into my estimates, add 5 to 10% inflation, because we all know it happens year after year. And those are what my estimates are going to be now for the year. So we've got administrative expenses such as insurance, permits. Again, all of these options are here listed for you, and I'll show you how to tailor that to your specific organization here in just a moment. Always permits, you know me, permits, licenses, etc. I'm going to put that in my admin section. Any labor and contractors here, medical first aid, security, setup, speakers, etc. is going to be under this labor section here. And here are my estimates. Supplies and rentals, stages, chairs, etc. You've got that VIP section. You need tables and chairs for the folks to sit down and enjoy themselves. So you know you're going to need that. Portable restrooms. These are all expenses that you want to account for in the beginning. Marketing and promotion. So several options here as well for you to see what kind of different marketing opportunities that you have expenses on. And don't forget sponsorship fulfillment in this line here. Since we're talking about sponsors today, sometimes it costs money in order to have a sponsor. The banners don't make themselves, the signage doesn't do itself, and they're not always making it for you. And some situations, like Adam said, for unique ones, there may be costs that the sponsor is going in on you with, but for the most part, we all know that we are executing this. This is going to be a part of our budget, so don't forget. Reserves from the year before. This is my first year doing this, so I maybe don't have reserves this year, but if I do well and I'm successful this year, maybe I can put aside $5,000 from my revenue and set it for myself for next year, especially for those startup costs that you need to get the ball rolling every year. So then from here, I will always add my quote. I'm going to my translation services person. I'm getting that hard quote. This is how much I expect it to be. And then again, after my event, I'm putting my actuals there so that I know how we performed and then how I know I can prepare for the year ahead. And then right here on the bottom, you've got your surplus and deficit. This will tell you, it looks like right now I'm in the green. Hey, and then, you know, you'll see how that can change when you get the quote and then really what the difference is in your actuals. So this will be provided for you all on our resources page. Right here are all the different lists that have been created for you. They have been turned into what is it called? Data validation, so that all of them will appear here on the budget line and you can remove or add as needed. So then I'm just going to quickly show you all the resources that we plan to share with you after this event or this webinar is completed. As you can see, you can click on download. Here's your event budget template. It's going to come up and download. Same with the rate card sample, the sponsorship proposal, and the recap template. Plus, you can find all of our other resources from previous SkillShops, and then you can even find some resources on special event permits. So that is what we have coming to you, folks. Once we have completed the webinar, we'll get you an email out. Don't worry. It'll be available online at any time, not just in your email. So go to the TVE's website, tacomavenues.org, under special events, SkillShops, and you can find these resources there. So that's it for our resources. We're going to go to Q&A. First question is Demishi.
Yes. Can I use that budget resource for my real life?
Yeah, girl. It's
Wonderful.
very customizable. So remove line items, add line items, and you can search how to do that very easily if you're not proficient with Excel on how to do that. So I'm using it for my upcoming event, City of Destiny Awards in June. I'll use it for my future events, MLK and so forth. That way all of my budgets are looking the same. They're easy for my committee who continues to review my budgets to look at. They understand it. And it's just nice and clean.
Wonderful. Are we ready for Q&A?
Yeah, I have an amazing amount of questions in the Q&A. So we're just going to start here. To my panelists, I might shout out an individual person to answer these questions, but if others of you have some thoughts and feelings about it, please feel free to let me know and you can go ahead and answer. And then after we finish this section of Q&A, if there's any hands raised amongst the attendees, I'll pop you on the screen. You can ask a question directly to our panelists. I'm going to stop sharing this for now, so that way we can kind of see everybody's face. Hello, everybody. And then the first question is gonna say, this is from Teresa, and what are the effective ways to get sponsors? And it sounds like this is geared towards Adam and Michael, but Galen, I think you're gonna have also great insight to this.
Don't both jump at once.
I can
no.
start. I guess I can start. Everyone's different. I think for me personally, I'm not a really good cold caller, so I think I rely heavily just on relationship building and referrals. But that being said, you do have to make some calls. So I think as far as being effective, I mean, sales is a numbers game. You can't be. You have to be willing to to take no easily. I'm very competitive, so I don't like hearing no. But sometimes it's part of the game. So as far as effectively, it really depends. But I think we touched upon a little bit is leveraging your network. I think is the easiest way to really to get referrals to meet people. I think attending events. Usually, I'll go and look at other venues and maybe go up to their suite level and write down all the companies that are spending money. Or I go to a baseball game and I think I see it a little differently. I look at who's advertising. I really don't watch the game as much as looking at signage, looking at new opportunities and what other people are doing, what your competition is doing. I think that's very key. And as far from the event side, I think there's ways to find sponsors that are get involved in the community and doing different events. So I think having a idea who's spending money is a good start. So
Galen, Michael, did you have anything to add to that?
I would just say also when you're looking for sponsors and approaching, absolutely what Adam said about looking at other events that are similar to yours, because I know for our organization, we tend to support sort of the same things, which is like children and pets, right? And so looking at sponsors at events that are similar to yours, but also, and this one gets me all the time, is exclusivity. So when somebody comes to me and says, you're the only bank that we're approaching because we just think what you guys do is amazing. That's a really good way to get in the door with us. So, paying attention to the net you cast, making sure that there's not overlap in competition with your sponsors.
Yeah, just to add on, I would say as much face-to-face time as you can get, if you can get that meeting with the organization, that is like the best thing to do. But if you can't set the meeting, finding that number to call, sending a follow-up email with the information and the brochures and things, that's great. But Galen, I'm also interested to know if there's a certain time of the year that's best to ask. I know there's a lot of things with budget and when those things need to be finalized, so maybe that could be helpful for others to know.
And then can I part two that question, because it's in the chat and I feel like they go together, but how do you find the best person to contact when you're doing that?
I'll answer Michael really quickly. Budgets are usually due in January. So I start budgeting in October. I'm not sure if everybody is as proactive as I am, but I do a lot of different things. So I have to start a little bit earlier. But I would say no later than like mid-November for the next year.
Great. I'm going to go to a couple other questions and I'm kind of jumping around to see what kind of questions we have, but I think this is a really good one that would pertained to when we were talking about assets, and who is there somebody you can consult to try to identify the assets of your event, venue, etc.? Or how do you identify your assets, Michael and Adam?
I think just getting creative, like where can you put a sign? What elements are you looking for to enhance your event? Can you get a sponsor for that? I think just going through your event step by step, whether it's from the beginning to the end to the actual event, anything and everything that you could potentially put a name on, or have someone, come on board as a sponsor for that particular service. So I don't know if there's a consulting, there are firms out there that will come in and evaluate your assets and your sponsorships. We're actually doing it right now. But on a more of a grand scale, naming rights, large venue, as far as events go, I don't know, but there has to be people out there that can just take a look at your event and help you to identify what your assets may be, or if you know any other event organizers that may be willing to help you as well.
Yeah, I echo that as well. And again, going to other events that are similar to yours and seeing what they're doing and seeing what kind of creative ways they're highlighting their sponsors. It's really also like what you're able to do as well. Like, depending on how big your team is, are you the one creating those benefits and making sure that they're happening? Or are you in a bigger shop where that can get kind of divvied up and there is more opportunity?
I'm going to kind of kick this question over to Galen and ask, as a sponsor, what kind of branding identity assets are you looking for?
That's an interesting question, and it's hard to answer because, a lot of times that depends on what the sponsorship has to offer, right? I can look at sponsorship elements and say, "Ooh, that's where I want to be on that list of things." But I think for me, things that work around the clock and are really valuable. So for instance, at the Tacoma Dome, we have the sponsorship banner in the stadium, and we also have the columns wrapped. And I think, Adam, the column wrap is really what made me like sign on the dotted line with you. So and it's like, hey, Alaska Airlines had it and they gave it up, but we can give it to you. So I was like, ooh, anything that is anything like that that's unique that nobody else has, you've got my attention again. So
There's
probably
10
wasn't
more,
the answer
Galen, too.
exactly, but what?
There's 10 more that are open, just in case you're interested.
Our renewal's up soon, so come at me.
I love it. Full circle.
We've still got some time. I'm going to find some more questions here. This one's kind of actually for me and Demishi, but as a City of Tacoma entity, we might want to gather sponsorships. Is that within our capability, or is it typically in kind for most? Are there any City of Tacoma legal requirements? So I know of three events, excuse me, that we ask for sponsorship. The first one is the Environmental Sustainability Expo that just happened last weekend. They asked for sponsorships for their event, and then I asked for sponsorships for both MLK and for City of Destiny. For me personally, I really encourage my board to go after the sponsorships because they are the ones planning. Although I may be executing and producing, they are the body of the event. They're making all the decisions. So I just think it's really valuable for that ask to come from them. However, of course, I still have to facilitate everything. And yeah, I don't know that there are any legal ramifications. What we're doing though is we're being very event specific with our sponsorship asks. We're not currently going after donations to just be put towards the committee's budget. So we're being really careful about the way that we do that until we can maybe learn kind of more about how we can use sponsorships to our advantage. So yeah, I think there are ways to do it. Definitely consult with your director, your department heads to make sure that you're on the same page. I worked really closely with my team to make sure that the asks were achievable. So that way, you know, we're kind of equally giving out the same thing, but we do also in kind for our events, and we promote organizations that come to us and don't charge us any money for maybe activities or performers or speakers in creative ways throughout the program itself. So for me, it's a new program, sponsorships, but our committee's taking it really seriously, and they're even creating a subcommittee that's specifically for sponsorships. So that way they don't have to do the planning and the sponsorship portion, and they kind of focus on one thing or another.
The only thing I want to say is to be intentional. So Ashley touched on sponsorships and how it's for specific programming and not just asking for money, donations. Like for some things, I think that's okay if that works. And others, you want to be intentional because those that are sponsoring, they want to know what that ROI is, where their money is going. They want to see it. They want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go to some more questions here. Let's see what we got. A lot of people asking about the resources. Yep, you're gonna get a nice email with all of those. If you wanted to share out with your own network, there will be a link to our Tacoma Venues website with all of the resources. You're welcome to share that. Let's go to this question. How do you reply politely to a sponsor that suggests a little more added benefits than what the tier they agreed to offers? For example, they sponsored as a silver level, but they're asking for additional items that would fall under the platinum level. That's a tricky
Ooh.
question. Michael, Adam, any suggestions on how you would approach that?
Go ahead, Michael.
It-
I can jump in quick and then Adam, sorry.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think knowing the sponsor as well, I think that's key, and knowing that, you want to make sure you can get those sponsorships in the future. Again, I think customizing things, and if it is okay with your organization and your department head, are there benefits that they maybe don't use or they don't want even, that you could maybe, take those out to elevate that higher benefit? Personally, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all part of negotiating. I mean, it's sometimes you have to be willing to, give and take a little bit. And I would say, you know, yeah, I think it depends on how badly you need sponsors. But I think, yeah, if you can, I wouldn't take the first offer right away. I would definitely just come back and say, okay, yeah, we're willing to do this, but we have to take away this, or, so once again, it comes down to finding what their needs are, and maybe just through conversation, you'll find out, like Michael said, maybe they don't need A and B, but they really want a higher level sponsorship. So it's all give and take.
See what other questions we have. This is a good one. Is it common for for-profit businesses to get sponsorships for community events, or is it typically just nonprofits?
I can take that actually. So for the Hams for the Holidays, we obviously did it through our sponsorship with the Tacoma Dome. So we, got that donated, but we used it as a way to reach out to our clients, let them know what we were doing. We put together a sponsorship packet. So I played both sides of that role. We don't do it to make any money, obviously. 100% of everything that we got went to Hams for the Holidays. But we donated, I think, 10,000 of our own dollars, and then everything else that we raised was fundraised through our clients and our community. So yes, if the short answer is yes, but I also don't see a lot of for-profit companies putting on events like Hams for the Holidays, which is why it was so unique. So in a roundabout way, yes, we do, but it's not common.
If I'm gonna stick with you for a little bit, Galen. So do sponsors have an interest in sponsoring smaller organizations and local festivals and events? Or do you have any suggestions for organizations that may not have events as large as the Tacoma Dome?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tacoma Dome is one of the largest sponsorships that we have. We have two big ones, and Tacoma Dome is one of them. So a lot of what we sponsor are the smaller things. I mean, we're a small community bank, so that's really where you're going to see actually the majority of my budget going is to those smaller events. And I think especially where the value comes in for us on those smaller events is, number one, are they in our communities that we serve? But number two, are there opportunities for us to get our employees involved? Because part of giving back is connecting our staff to that mission to give back, right? So if somebody comes to me and says, you know, hey, how about a $500 sponsorship here? And we'd love to have 3 of your people, you know, work with us on the weekend. So the connection is really what that's about for us, because you know, we can't all do giant Tacoma Dome. There's only one Tacoma Dome, you know. So yes, the answer is we do a lot of those. I would say the majority of those.
Thank you so much. That was a great question. I'm going to turn it over back to some of the research that is done before the events. What questions do you ask to discover what demographic your event or events are? And part 2 for Galen, how do you determine what demographics you're looking for?
Am I on both? Sorry.
I
Is
think
Adam
the
number
first one
one?
is to Adam and Michael. Like,
Okay.
how do you figure out what the demographic of your event's going to be? Because that's the information you're providing to Galen, right? And then she's assessing if that's the correct demographic for what she's trying to get out of her investment in the sponsorship.
So I think if you're hosting an event, if it's not the first time, you should be able to gather information to see who's coming. But yeah, from a larger scale, like we have demographics based from ticket buyers. So on an event side, you may not have that. So, but depending on what type of event yours is, you should be able to kind of know, like, yeah, I guess find out who you're targeting, what type of, like, what is your audience, I guess. So if it's a new event, obviously you may not know that, but based on the type of event it is, I think you can, without having numbers like statistics, I think you have an idea who your demographic should be. I don't know if I'm answering that correctly, but and then, you know, as far as from my side, asking the sponsor, if you can't find that through research online, it just, yeah, that's a good question to ask. What is their demographic? What are they looking for? What are the most important things to them? So
Michael, did you have anything to add to that?
Echoing what Adam said, but maybe it's more of a conversation of asking the sponsor first, what demographic are you trying to hit, and then maybe finding the correct event that aligns with that desire before bringing the event maybe first. So maybe it's the conversation of which event would be best for the sponsorship.
Great. And I think I have some feedback too, like the Dome, our events that we do, festivals, do post-event surveys. Ask these questions in your post-event surveys. Post QR codes of your post-event surveys throughout your festival and event so that people can come back to it. Especially for those that aren't ticketed, it's really hard, I understand, to know who is actually attending. The numbers are difficult, let alone what the numbers represent is even more challenging. So providing any opportunity you can to do post-event surveys and ask those questions. That way you can take it to future events and to your sponsors. and say, this is what we had last year. Galen, did you want to provide some insight about like, what are you looking for when you're trying to target demographics yourself?
Yeah, and that's a multi-tiered question as well, because sometimes we invest, especially the smaller dollar amounts, like we were talking about earlier, just because we want to support the community and we want to support whatever mission it is that they're providing. And we don't really, the demographic is not as important. Now, when you get into the higher level, long-term sponsorships, that's when really trying to drill down into who is your audience, how do they interact with your events, all of that, that's when that comes more into play. So I would say, like, for the Tacoma Dome, we have certain shows that fit better with who we're going after and certain that don't, but we do know that it's Tacoma centric. The market that it pulls from for shows encompasses our footprint, right? So all of that aligning is really important for those high dollar, but for those lower dollar, it could be just as simple as, we're supporting, pet homelessness in Pierce County, right? And that's enough for us. So it really depends on the level of investment, because at some point it's a charitable donation, and at some point it's a marketing investment. So delineating between those two is really important.
Right. We've got a lot of questions today. We're going to try to get as many as we can answered, but we've got about 8 minutes. And I want to give an opportunity to show our last slide. So let's start with one more question, but we may only get to 1 or 2. This one is directly to Michael. Have you ever had to say no to a sponsor that didn't fit your organization's mission and values? How do you manage these sorts of interactions? Is there ever a time to say no?
I'm sure there is. I haven't come across it in my time yet here. I'm sure that is really hard to, when you're again looking at mission alignment, looking at what your organization represents, and again, who you'd like to be affiliated with. Again, this is like you are also showcasing who your organization is partnering with. It's kind of like that public display of partnership. So that is a great question to really think on. I know if it's like a political misalignment, or all kinds of different opportunities, like different differences, that is something that maybe like the head of your organization and you can chat about.
We have another question. How do you measure the success of your sponsorship? Do you keep a metric? Adam, might either one of you want to take that?
So from my side, I like the recap that I kept or that I keep and track just shows the value that I provide. Now, from a sponsor side, I think it's up to them to really look at, are they getting their return? So it's not always from the venue side or the event side, but a lot of times it comes from the sponsor side. And actually, to go back to the last question, sometimes, if their return isn't what they want, and if, I, like, for instance, it came up where I had to look at our return as well. And after doing more information, pulling more information and data, and it sometimes may be best for both sides to walk away and maybe reevaluate another year or two. But I think I answered the last question just because it did come up recently. But as far as from evaluating it, yeah, you have to look at maybe your cost or your time spent to fulfill this sponsorship, and it may not always be worth it. But from the sponsorship side, I think it ultimately comes back to, are they seeing the return, or are their goals being met by a sponsorship ultimately?
Michael, did you have any follow-up on that?
No.
I have one that I probably can answer really quickly, which is when you have more than 2 events in a year, do you ask potential sponsors all at once or one at a time? I'm going to say that really depends on you and your organization and how you guys function. When you go into contract, you could very clearly identify what deliverables are going to be for each event uniquely. I personally keep mine very separate. But so that just kind of depends on how internally you guys want to run your sponsorship program. I don't think there's one right way or one wrong way about it. For example, with Adam, his sponsorships are going to be for all of the events for the most part, because the Dome is has physical assets, and so they will be here every time. And perhaps for Michael, it's by event, case by case basis. But if your organization is set up in a way where you could have multiple events in one contract with one sponsor, and your sponsor is happy with that, then by all means, set it up like that. So I think we're gonna unfortunately not be able to answer the rest of the questions, but please reach out to me and Demishi with any additional questions. We'd be happy to support anything and lead you to the path that will get you the answers you are looking for. So that wraps it up for our Q&A. Demishi, close us out.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming and joining us today. We appreciate all of you. I hope that the resources that we will provide after the skill shop are helpful and useful for you. Also, don't forget to fill out the survey. We would love to hear from you. We would love to know what skill shops you would like to see from us. And as Ashley has here, we have upcoming skill shops. Monday, May 19th, permits, programs, and resources. Monday, June 16th, permitting public spaces, how to host events on Tacoma streets. So you will get an opportunity to connect with Tacoma Police Department, Fire Department, and really get some insight on how to gain those permits for your event and what goes into that. So once again, panelists, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. It has been a pleasure. We appreciate you. And I hope everyone gained some insight and takes away some great tools for their upcoming events. We will see you at the next skill shop. Thank you.